Thoughts to Build on by KOPMEYER, 29. Chapter 29. How to Avoid or Get Rid of Resentment. Resentment is one of the most common and dangerous emotional afflictions that befalls us, or perhaps I should more accurately say, that we bring upon ourselves. Here is what psychologists say about resentment. Resentment is an attempt to excuse, to others or to ourselves, our own failure by attributing it to injustice or unfair treatment by those we resent. Habitual resentment turns inward in the form of self-pity, which becomes a chronic emotional agony seeking relief in the sympathy and servitude of others. There are no more unpleasant companions than those whose resentment has turned to self-pity. They feel that others should be dedicated, no matter the inconvenience, to providing them with physical, mental, and especially emotional well-being. They expect, and inwardly demand, undying gratitude for favors, attentions, or services, even the most insignificant, which they may have rendered to others in the past. They feel that these debts, which others owe them, must be paid, again and again, in sympathy, attention, and services, and their resentment spreads to include these debtors, if such debts are not repeatedly paid and repaid. Thus begins one phase of resentment, self-pity, which is the cause of much chronic emotional agony and much mental absorption in negative thinking. But self-pity is just one of the results of resentment. There is another in which resentment begins with burning anger and escalates through an upward spiral to hatred, vengeance, and sometimes murder or insanity. Usually resentment escalates to intense feelings of hatred, often to a conscious or subconscious desire for vengeance, sometimes fulfilled by action. Much too often does the resentment, hatred, vengeance spiral culminate in murder. While vengeance is not the only motive for murder, although it often is a principal ingredient, and while firearms are not the only means of murder, it is a shocking statistic that since 1900 more than 750,000 Americans have been shot to death in their homes, which far exceeds all of the Americans killed in battle in all the wars in which the United States has fought. Even though murder and insanity are unlikely climaxes for the feelings of resentment which most of us experience all too frequently, resentment causes so much emotional tension, irritation, and often severe anguish that all of us should 1. Learn to avoid resentment. 2. Get rid of any and all feelings of resentment which we now have. Yes, even that pet resentment we almost enjoy. It is clearly not intended that this book presume to be even a partial text on psychology, nor a complete text on any subject. It is merely a book containing, as its name describes, thoughts to build on. Its purpose is to be a thought starter, to stimulate interesting and, I hope, constructive thoughts, some of which you may want to explore further in more comprehensive texts on those subjects. So, within the limitations of the purpose of this book, let's think about resentment, how to avoid it, and how to get rid of it if it already is in your emotional complexes. Let's start by understanding exactly what resentment really is. Resentment is an emotional reliving of an unpleasant happening of the past. Knowing what resentment actually is should help us learn to avoid it, or, having previously failed to avoid it, learn to get rid of it. More precisely, resentment is our unfavorable reaction to what we consider to be an affront to our precious egos or an attack on our person, relationships, or belongings. Since resentment is a reaction to something unpleasant which has happened, how do we put a block between the unpleasant happening and our reaction to it in the form of resentment? In various ways, and here are a few. Ignore it. The cultivated art of being able to ignore real or imagined unpleasant past happenings will save you much unnecessary anguish. The past is done. You cannot change the past no matter how many times you relive it in memory. So why suffer the reliving of unpleasant past experiences? Since you cannot change them, ignore them and forget them. More easily said than done, you may reply. And, if you are a particularly sensitive person, your excuse is partially true. Are your feelings easily hurt? Are you overly sensitive to what others say or do, so that you take offense at the least word or action which does not flatter your precious ego? Are you thin-skinned, emotionally so that the slightest social cut is a deep and painful wound? Then here are some proven, helpful suggestions. Get tough emotionally. Be like tough General Smedley Butler, when he was commanding general of the U.S. Marines. Old Helldevil Butler, they called him. And that wasn't the only name they called him, either. He said he had been called every unprintable name in the book. He had been cussed by experts. How did he react? Did he feel hurt? Was he offended? Did he smolder in resentment? Not Smedley Butler. He said, "Whenever I hear someone cussing me, I never bother to turn my head to see who's talking." Yes, you say, but General Butler was a tough Marine and I'm just a tender, shrinking Violet. Okay, Violet, it's time you got over being tender and stopped shrinking. And you don't have to be a Marine general to do it. You can be an elderly, quiet, courteous, distinguished gentleman like Bernard Baruch, who calmly and wisely advised 6 presidents. Let wise, thoughtful Bernard Baruch advise you, too. He said, "No man can humiliate or disturb me. I won't let him." That's how to block out resentment before it upsets you emotionally. Just don't let anyone humiliate or disturb you. Your physical body has a built-in thermostat which maintains an even body temperature of 98.6 degrees no matter whether the temperature outside your body is below freezing or a sweltering 120 degrees. Consciously hold mental pictures before your subconscious mind, visualizing yourself as having an emotional thermostat which maintains your emotions at a pleasant, even, emotional temperature of relaxed, undisturbed serenity. No matter how frigid the snubs or how heated the personal attacks you inevitably will encounter from time to time. Just simply do not respond nor react to the emotional storms swirling about you, but be as emotionally unconcerned as the ticking of a clock during a thunderstorm. Another way to avoid developing feelings of resentment is to adopt the life motto of the great French philosopher, Montaigne. A man is not hurt so much by what happens as by his opinion of what happens. Don't make a mountain of resentment out of the molehill of some snub or irritation. Don't bleed emotionally from every insulting cut. If somebody tries to do a hatchet job on you, don't let the hatchet make even a dent in your composure and disposition. Remember, your resentment doesn't hurt the person against whom you harbor the resentment. It hurts only you. So why deliberately hurt yourself? Mentally punching pinholes in some other person's picture doesn't hurt him or her the least bit. And, sooner or later, you will stick yourself. If you can't love your enemies, at least love yourself enough that you won't let your enemies control your happiness, your disposition and your health. So, when a resentment situation arises, ignore it and forget it. Don't take yourself too seriously, and don't take other people and the irritating things they sometimes do too seriously, either. Just think of something else. Your mind cannot hold 2 different thoughts at the same time, so concentrate on anything but your budding resentment. Keep busy. Ease self in work or active play. If resentment insists on intruding, just laugh in its face and mentally say to it, "Go away, boy, I'm busy. Don't bother me." Be too big to be resentful. Adopt the philosophy of our late President Dwight Eisenhower. Never waste a minute thinking about anyone you don't like. But suppose a resentment has already taken root. How do you get rid of it? You will find that the methods of avoiding resentment described on the preceding pages will also help you get rid of established resentment. Most people accept they're having some resentments as a natural part of life. It is only when they recognize resentments as persistent causes of unhappiness and walls that they determine to rid themselves of their present resentments and to avoid all resentments in the future. So reread this chapter. It explains what resentment truly is, the unhappiness it can bring you, and how to avoid it. This will take you a long way toward freeing yourself from any resentments you currently hold, or perhaps I should say, that currently hold you. However, additional methods are necessary if you want to eliminate well-established, deeply rooted resentments. One requirement is a sympathetic understanding of the people you resent. Perhaps they were justified, or at least believed they were, in doing whatever caused your resentment. I have found, through objective and thoughtful analysis, that the actions of others which I have most deeply resented and which have caused me the greatest unhappiness are actually reactions to something I did first that provoked their antagonism and thus caused them to act as they did, ultimately leading to my own resentment. I bet if you honestly and objectively analyze each of your resentments, you too will discover that, in many cases, You initially started or at least escalated the events that finally resulted in your harboring those resentments. In such cases, your resentments have no valid reason to exist and, in light of understanding, should promptly disappear. Then you need to do one more thing. Since you caused the other person to act as they did because of their own resentment toward you, you need to remove their resentment as well. Do this by apologizing, or by directly or indirectly making amends, or by whatever appropriate and effective method is needed to remove his resentment of you. Otherwise, if you allow his resentment to persist, he will continue to behave toward you in ways that provoke your resentment. And the vicious cycle will start again. In many other cases, you will find that the insults, slights, rudeness, or other annoyances that cause your resentment are not intentional at all, but stem from the very human trait of each of us being absorbed in our own thoughts, plans, problems, and affairs. Others are probably not thinking about how delighted you would be if they greeted you with great enthusiasm. I have learned that it makes absolutely no difference whether I am greeted warmly, indifferently, or not at all. I am not running for office, nor am I in a popularity contest. And I can always attract others' attention by starting the conversation or action myself with the same or better results. So don't take yourself, or others, too seriously. The unhappy resentments aren't worth it. Objectively seek to understand the origin of your resentments by considering them in relation to the total personal problems, ambitions, and viewpoints of the people you now resent. You'll find that from their perspective, they may have been justified, or believed they were, in doing what you resent. Then, with whatever self-discipline is required, you'll find that your resentments will fade into the oblivion they rightly deserve.